Greetings, unsettled souls, and welcome to the Correct Views. Sam I be the Gangi doing political commentary for the media speaks, and friends, it has been 5 years. Do me a favor, make sure you hit subscribe. That's very important. Make sure you hit share. That is also very important because we need to get this information out to as many people as possible. It's been 5 years. 5 years, and we've seen a very little improvement. We'll get into it in a minute. What we've seen is catastrophic things happen in the ocean. Look up Dana Dunford, beautiful girl Dana. Mass die-offs. We've seen health issues. We've seen children with cancers. We've seen no tuna out of the Pacific Ocean, none, zero, that is coming up without some kind of poison on it. And I've got the full update. We're going to go ahead and cover all of the news coming out of Fukushima, and we are also going to be covering global news, of which we have a lot, and which is not good, unfortunately. We're going to get right into it. Let me see if the screen share actually on this works. It's Google, so, you know, sometimes things work, and sometimes they don't. Very good this time. The Medici child thyroid cancer in Fukushima, many times the national average report draft. Now remember, keep in mind during all of this, that the things that are happening in Japan are things that are going to be happening here. Pollution is not solved by dilution. By that, I mean putting large amounts of radionuclides into the ocean under the false pretense that the ocean will dilute it is untrue. A particle of plutonium will live for millions and millions of years, and the jet stream will continually bring this to us in ever greater quantities, I should say, again and again and again, and it's going to affect all of us. It's very important. We'll get in later on to the show about some things you could do to alleviate at least some of it. Of course, much of it can't be stopped at all, but here's what we got. Thyroid cancer in Fukushima, many times the national average. An expert committee sanctioned by the Fukushima prefectural government has approved the final draft of a midterm report stating that the production of child thyroid cancer cases has been found in Fukushima prefecture and is many times higher than the national average. At the same time, the committee says it is difficult to imagine that the higher incidence is due to radiation. Now, isn't that interesting? Maybe the reason that's so hard for them to decide whether or not it's due to radiation, it couldn't have anything to do with the amount of money that might be tied up in it. You know, Westinghouse, General Electric, they bring good things to life, right? Let me tell you what they brought to life. They ignored repeated warnings about the dangers of building where they go. They were told there was going to be an earthquake of significant size in that area, and what happened? An earthquake of significant size hit that area. We suffered a meltdown, a melt out, and a melt through. Meltdown, we all know what that is. The nuclear fuel has been exposed to the environment. A melt through is when it goes through the containment vessel downward and into the earth, the water supply, what have you. And a new horror called a melt out, which is largely the black goo that was so prevalent in Tokyo. That was the nuclear core of one of the 4 reactors. A melt out, it exploded and blew all over Tokyo. This happened due to the tsunami, and the earthquake actually triggered one of the meltdowns prior to the tidal wave. So don't let them tell you that the tsunami, the tidal wave, caused it, because they're wrong. It was caused initially by the earthquake. And that matters because if earthquakes can take out, that wasn't what I wanted to do. If earthquakes can take out power plants, then we can have earthquakes here that would do that. Well, I'll let you in on a little secret that, maybe you missed. if it can happen from an earthquake triggering the shutdown of the entire electrical system, then what you're going to be looking at even faster is if this were to happen here, then you would have in the southern part of the United States, you would have a massive meltdown because it would trigger the dams to wash over the nuclear power plants. I'm stammering here because my damn Google doesn't want to work. It would trigger a massive amount of water going over. So you would have the earthquake problems and you would have the tsunami problems if the earthquake triggered the breaking of a number of dams. And you can look up dam breakage, power plant failure on the internet. You can do a simple Google search and you'll see that I'm telling you the truth here. The committee, consisting of experts, in fields including epidemiology and cancer, examined health survey data from Fukushima Prefecture children who were 18 or younger at the time of the Fukushima #1 nuclear power plant disaster. Committee Chairman Hakoto Hoshi said at a press conference that the higher rate of thyroid cancer was due to simultaneously checking many patients at once. The final draft is based on the initial round of diagnosis given between October of 2011 and the end of April last year. Around 300,000 of about 370,000 potential survey subjects were examined. Based on national statistics, the survey should have only found 2 people who were under the age of 18 at the time of the disaster with thyroid cancer. But instead, 100 people were found to have cancer. 15 above and beyond that were expected to be precancerous. Now listen to me. Either Chris Busby, Helen Collicott, Lowen Moray, Arnie Gunderson, maybe all these people were psychics. And that's how they knew. We got it. That's how they knew this was going to happen. You see, they're psychics. No. These doctors predicted that this was going to happen. They told you it was going to happen, and guess what? It happened. The cancer rates have done exactly what we're told that they were going to do. So how are they saying this is happening? We may be diagnosing many cases of cancer that would otherwise be diagnosed later in life. In other words, they're trying to tell you that all of the children in Japan have always had incidences of thyroid cancer this high. They just didn't know. They would have found it later in life. Cancer can incubate. It does not incubate for 30 years. It's unheard of. This is nothing other than the direct result of Fukushima. This is what nuclear power does. This is what nuclear anything does. Nuclear is death. There is no safe way to do it, and it's all about money. That's all that it is about. And we're going to show you repeatedly throughout this. I guess it's a 5-year anniversary, so I don't want to screw it up. The most important information of our time is what I'm telling you right now. Okay? It is that important. There is nothing more important. Bush, Trump, Hillary, that other lunatic, Bernie, none of that matters compared to this. Okay? Not compared to this. Listen. Scientists, West Coast bird die-off is the biggest ever recorded. Stomachs completely empty, staggering, alarming, unheard of, never seen anything like it. SGTreport.com. It's also from E&E News. Alaska Dispatch News, January 29th, 2016. Scientists think Gulf of Alaska seabird die-off is the biggest ever recorded. Look up Dana Dunford. He's been talking about this extensively. He took an entire tour in a dinghy. The mass of dead seabirds that have washed up on Alaska beaches in past months is unprecedented in size, scope, and duration, a federal biologist said. The staggering die-off is a signal that something is awry in the Gulf of Alaska, said Heather Renner, supervisory wildlife biologist at Alaska Maritime National Wildlife Refuge. It coincides with widespread death of other marine animals, from whales in the Gulf of Alaska to sea lions in California. This is, in every way, what was predicted when everybody who was predicting it, such as myself, were being called insane. And now that it's actually happened exactly the way that we said it would, dreadfully so, they're saying that it's not really happening. It is, in fact, just in our heads. Because, you know, half of Japan always has cancer. Heather at our Alaska Maritime National Wildlife Refuge, we are in the midst of perhaps the largest mure die-off ever recorded. In Homer, the beaches are littered with mure carcasses. A breeding colony in the Barren Islands, it says, that is usually teeming in the late summer with adult mures tending their young, was deserted this year. Nobody was home. In more than 3 decades of monitoring mures and barrens, we've never had a complete reproduction failure before. Similar failures occurred at some other nesting colonies. And this was reported in USGS. It says common and thick-billed mures, black-legged, I think it's kittiwaks, horned and tuft puffins, glaucous-winged gulls, and scooty and short-tailed shearwaters. Some of the avian mortalities were concurrent with whale, piniped sea, and other fish abnormalities. Another source, how about Alaska Public Radio, largest and most widespread die-off ever recorded. Birds are dying far inland, apparently searching for food that is nearly unheard of. KHNS, another source, we're seeing the effects of this throughout the food web. The mure stomachs are completely empty. It says, who knows what else is dying off or could be in trouble. CNN, for the last source here, that's quite a source, I would say, for those of you that say it, and I don't give any. But we have never found close to 8,000 Long Beach before, a magnitude larger than any records that I am aware of. Seabird is an ecosystem. Now they're dying, and they are telling us this is bigger than what we've ever seen. And yet, you hear about Mark Rubio. You hear about, meanwhile, the entire Pacific Ocean, for that matter, is poisoned beyond reason. God alone knows what you're even eating. There's nobody talking about it because there's a lot of money to be saved by not talking about it. And that comes at the expense of your health. That comes at the expense of you not knowing what you're eating. And I mean, the jet stream brings the rain over, so you could be a freaking vegan, and this isn't going to help you as much as you think that it would. Michael Snyder, End of the American Dream. Coming soon, this is what would happen if a 9.0 earthquake hit the Cascadia subduction zone. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, Sam, shut up. They've been quakes forever. This isn't the San Andreas fault that they're talking about. This is worse. And a lot of the same people warning you here, same people that were warning you about Fukushima, and no one listened. So when they speak, it'd be a good idea to listen, lend them your ear. In the Pacific Northwest, you have probably already heard of the Cascadia subduction zone. It is where the Juan de Fuca plate meets the North American plate, and it stretches approximately 700 miles from northern Vancouver Island all the way to northern California. Subduction zone is capable of producing earthquakes like the San Andreas fault in northern California, and scientists tell us that it is only a matter of time before another continent-killing earthquake hits the area. When it does, it will be far worse than any other natural disaster in the United States up to this point. According to CNN, it could trigger and deliver a quake many times stronger than expected. Cascadia, all times more energetic than the San Andreas fault to start with. And then it generates a tsunami at that time, which is side-by-side motion the San Andreas fault cannot. In other words, the San Andreas fault is moving in the wrong direction to send a tsunami. What would it look like? According to an article in the New Yorker, if the entire zone gives way at once, an event that seismologists call a full margin rupture, the magnitude will be somewhere between 8.7 and 9.2. Now keep in mind, friends, they go up orders of magnitude. So an 8.6 to an 8.7 is not 1 point higher, it's 10. That's what an order of magnitude means. By the time the shaking has ceased and the tsunami has receded, the region will be unrecognizable. Kenneth Murphy, who directs FEMA's Region XX, says the division responsible for Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Alaska, our operating assumption is that everything west of Interstate 5 will be toast. Now, let me ask you a question. What's going to happen, pray tell, when that event takes place, or even a smaller version that makes the power plants part of this debris? You can't just wash it out into the ocean. It will poison the area to such a degree that life will be unrecoverable, quite possibly for the entire northern hemisphere. They need, and who knows if there's even time, they need to get these nuclear power plants shut down as quickly as possible. And they need to get the fuel far, far away from that region. And again, that would involve taking fuel through other countries, or other states, other cities, other towns. That's not going to be a popular idea. So you've got a real problem here. But the last thing that you want to do is leave these nuclear power plants continuing to operate. Because if you do that, orders of magnitude, it's going to be orders of magnitude worse, I promise you. Independent.co.uk, moving on to how some of this affects what's going on in the nuclear front. Brought to you by stickerjunkie.com. Let them know you heard about it on the correct news when you're a discount. I love Sticker Junkie, and trust me, you will too. Your sticker's looking good. Want to help the show at the same time? Tell Sticker Junkie you heard about it here. Will Worley, Chinese nuclear fusion scientist, achieved temperatures 3 times hotter than the sun. Well, that's just remarkable news. The latest nuclear reactor in China has created a plasma at a temperature of 500 million kelvins. That is 90 million degrees Fahrenheit. That is almost as hot as Christelle's ass. 49.999 million degrees Celsius. The temperature is thought to be 3 times hotter than the core of the sun, or roughly the same as a mid-sized thermonuclear explosion. Well, that's just wonderful. Nothing could possibly go wrong there. Way to go, China. The experiment was done in a machine, advanced superconducting tokamak, known as these. It happened last week at the Institute of Plasma Physics at the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Jiangsu province. So they take over the research team had no seconds, of course, in every 17 minutes. However, the length of time that the plasma was sustained and controlled remains significant, as this one is one of the main obstacles to implementing nuclear fusion more widely. This is a break. China is supposed to have food that, look at China, they have routinely animals dying, wandering on farms, starving to death, being thrown into the water, poisoning entire villages, and all their money in the West. So the West is the same. In the West, do whatever they have to do. Meanwhile, they can more quickly heat up a cup of tea. It is not made to warm your sake object. This is made for people purposes, is my guess. Not a safe technology. It just isn't. And the poor people of China South are going to be the ones really dealing with it. And that's pure sanity, however, compared to what we're about to cover here. Of course, what else is there? We're talking insanity. Who makes China? Anybody? Washington Examiner. North Korea readies nukes for a moment's notice. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has instructed that the country's nuclear weapons be made ready to use according to a news agency. Korean Central News Agency confirmed that North Korea will have its military prepared to carry out precautionary attacks. It tested 4 nuclear weapons recently, Thursdays, firing 6 short-range projectiles into the sea. So what you have here is this tin horn that has decided that the West shouldn't be alarmed and that they're doing nuclear tests. They shouldn't be alarmed that they have a Hate America month in North Korea. And the West should not be alarmed that Kim Jong-un has openly threatened to attack countries that they don't like. I know it's very rare that I have anything at all about Obama, but I can tell you this. If he didn't do some kind of a reply, then I'm sorry, he'd be an even worse president than he is now. This is not a fail. Mark that on a calendar because I may never say it again. The Ebola czar was the other one. The country has tested 4 nuclear weapons. Although North Korea tested missiles and rockets in response to being internationally reprimanded. Thursday's action came hours after the United Nations Security Council approved sanctions against the communist nation for its nuclear activity. And these sanctions put on North Korea inspection. But let me ask you a question. Kim Jong-un, as an unintelligent, doesn't it seem, if you were such a powerful nation, that you would be able to grow your own damn food? And the sanctions from the evil land for your own would not bother you. Why don't you do that? The money, the resources, or the skill. Because you are a hermit country that is quickly becoming obsolete. And the only thing you have is a nuclear button and a few rusted rockets that might actually make it somewhere so that you can properly get your ass kicked. That's the only thing that's going to happen here. RT, Pyongyang threatens U.S. and South Korea with preemptive nuclear strike for justice over joint drills. So North Korea wants to be able to test nuclear missiles above its enemy South Korea on the same island and have these South Koreans do nothing in reply. Yeah, that's going to happen. North Korea has threatened to conduct a preemptive nuclear strike of justice unless the biggest ever joint military drills off the Korean peninsula involving more than 300,000 South Korean and 15,000 American troops are halted. The key resolve and full ego exercises which have taken place since 2008 are kicking off on Monday. Out of North Korea is the only country I know of that. You talk about what America does. You talk about what Putin does. We just talked about China. When you get to North Korea, they all look like a bunch of sane people, don't they? That is the most frightening of them. This is particularly dreadful. This is in New York, Leak at nuclear facility in New York. Causes. Are you ready for the, you're going to believe it's true, 65,000% increase in radioactivity of groundwater. 100 times, thousands, 65 increase. This is from the nuclear power plant. But say New York got hit by an earthquake. No, it didn't. Or say it got hit by a tsunami. No, it didn't. It's running that it's supposed to. It's still on the East Coast. It's spread on Earth zone. It's very hard to bomb the East Coast. They're not going to be attacked by our enemies in the East Coast. So it's safe, right? Natural news. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that a nuclear power plant from Manhattan, you know, just the biggest city in the country, had leaked one of the most potent radioactive carcinogens into the groundwater. The groundwater in that area flows into just 20 miles of New York City. Now, correct, there are a couple people in New York City, and I'm sure none of this will leach into the water. And I'm particularly angry about this because if I could live anywhere in the world, I would live in New York City. That is, I love it, love it, love it. The other place that I love that much is Los Angeles. That was ruined for me by Fukushima. And I'll be a son of a bitch if it's not happening again. Yesterday, I learned or covered that repeatedly. It's very hard and impossible to get out of water. The French machines, that I think it's Avria, that was sent to Japan, removed a lot of the radionuclides from water, but not tritium. Tritium is an SOB to get out of water. The company reported alarming levels of radioactivity at 3 monitoring wells, with one well's radioactivity increased by 65,000%. I tell my wife not to buy anything off the West Coast. Now I got to tell her not to buy anything at all. I guess we'll just starve to death. Alarmingly, the leak is not the first for this plant. In fact, such leaks are relatively common among U.S. nuclear power plants. Isn't that wonderful news? Potent carcinogen released into the river. That means that it's something that causes cancer for you Lady Gaga fans. The leak took place in a nuclear power plant, which we've ranted about forever on. It's supply of New York's electricity. Jerry Nappy, spokesman for the plant operator Entergy, said the leak probably came from a spillage of water as a result of a mechanical issue during pumping of water. I thought they were perfectly safe. Neil Shaheen, the spokesman for the commission, says, an out-of-service water flow from the containment drain. This leak from the building, and eventually the radioactive water made its way in. Oh, gravity takes effect too. There was no word on why the leak went undetected for so long. Well, I could probably tell you why. A lot of money in not telling you. Samples taken from the testing wells around the plant showed the highest radioactivity levels ever. In some cases, it's 8 million picocuries per liter. The radioactive component that it could be a radioactive isotope of hydrogen. Alarmingly, tritium is most carcinogenic in drinking water, and these are the people that would feed a ground after midnight. The first concern is the safety of the residents. No, your first concern is for the pocketbook, or you wouldn't have built the damn thing. Close to the facility and ensuring that the groundwater leak does not pose a threat. No, because cancer is not a threat. Even ignoring the millions living in New York, 117,000 within a 10-mile evacuation zone of the power plant, of which if something went wrong, I guarantee they would hurry to get them out of there safely. Yeah, right. Company whitewashes and the state demands answers. Yeah. And meanwhile, the plant, you watch this video and you shake your head and you do absolutely nothing to stop. You can share this video. You can hit subscribe. You can pull a mutual fund, GE arresting in it. You can pull your money out of stocks that are nuclear. You can watch what the Queen of England is doing because she owns a money, and particularly in Australia. Get out of those investments and make it stop from the inside out. There's very little you can do. There is some things you can do. I'm going to go back to screen share. This Giselle will be thrilled because I'm going to be mentioning bentonite clay, among other things. Before we get in, medical clay used by Native Americans shown to be more effective than overused antibiotics. I mentioned this because he's going to talk about some things that aren't nuclear, but I've researched it. Bentonite clay, as well as some of these. That's why I'm including it as the next to last article. So don't zone out when he goes in a different direction. I have not started taking these clays. I've wanted to for a while. And I'm out here with New York getting juice like that. It couldn't hurt. At least it's not in the air at this point. But, you know, again, water seeps into the ground, the rain, I get it. But you know what I'm saying. It's not in the air beyond that. For thousands of people throughout the world have used clay for and power for health benefits. Even animals are drawn to clay, especially in the form of mud. Whenever they are wounded, animals instinctively lick the mud and relief. They also tend to ingest it if they have recently ingested a toxic substance. There's links for all of this. In our times, bentonite clay has made a name for itself as a perfect detoxifying agent with a handful of impressive health benefits. Even more recently, a type of naturally occurring clay found in Kissimmee Bay, British Columbia, and used in Helitsup Nation has demonstrated antibacterial activity more potent than that of modern-day antibiotics. Everybody that I know right now is sick, so that's good news. NUKE will also get you over it quick. There's a free plug. It's amazing. Buy it. UMCHKA. This, and no, they don't pay me anything. This worries me because British Columbia, I'd like to ask Dana Dunford if it'd be safe to use any mud from that particular area. But let's try it again. The Bingo have used it for years, thousands of years. It can be found in the communities of Bella Bella and modern-day British Columbia. The indigenous inhabitants that form the Helitsup and Bella Bella culture are descendants of a few tribal groups that settled in the area in the 19th century, while their older ancestors as early as 7190 BC. It's more powerful. It was discovered for its uses of cresitol, alternative medicine, demonstrated its potency once again. The in vitro test conducted, the USB microbiologist Julian Yes. Dumb music going now. They are blaming global warming for the deaths of the animals on the West Coast. If there was ever a time to play that song loud and proud, now is said time, friends. Listen to this. Independent.co.uk. Warmer seas linked to disease epidemics affecting Pacific starfish and Atlantic. Put it into layman's terms. What the headline really says is we're blaming global warming and we don't want you to notice that there is a quadruple meltdown on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. And no, there's no chance that the power plant that Sam just told you about has anything to do with the Atlantic lobster die-off. No, it's all a coincidence. Quit driving your car, you're warming the planet. It's a very long headline. Warmer seas have been linked to disease epidemics affecting the populations of marine species in both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. South Canada have endured high levels of physically degenerative wasting disease, which causes them to lose their limbs and to die, which, again, I'll translate it for you. Never mind the fact that the starfish started dying at these numbers or shortly after the Fukushima disaster, it's because you drive your car. It says, in addition, lobster off the coast of New England are experiencing increasing levels of shell disease. Of course, it has nothing to do with any of the nuclear issues going on the East Coast. Quit driving your car. New evidence published in the Royal Society B has linked both events to sea rising temperatures. Therefore, if you drive your car, you're an axe murderer. The octostar, the most common type of starfish on the northern Pacific coast in the U.S., suffered a major outbreak of wasting disease between 2013 and 2014. They don't talk about it started sooner to increase in a way that you can hold a graph over and see is directly related to the amount of radiation that had accumulated in the ocean. And as it came over on the jet stream, which to some degree affects even us out here in the East. Up to 20 other marine species were affected, including the sunflower starfish, which is now considered practically extinct in the San Juan Islands, off the Washington state coast. You mean the West Coast? You mean where Sam said that you absolutely shouldn't live because it was going to do things like this? You mean that area? Glad it's not Fukushima. I'm glad it's the car. Look at this. Now, and on screen share, look at this. Now, what don't you see? No mention at all of Fukushima. The outbreak occurred during a period of anomalously warm seawater, and stars in the San Juan Islands had a higher disease risk than warmer sites. Look at that lobster. Now, friends, that's not what that's from. That is every picture of nuclear poisoning that you have ever seen in your life. Yes, I know my search is spooky. My search is spooky because I'm doing research on serial killers, so ignore it. There'll be a show about it. I'm putting a large one together, by the way. Listen to me. Listen to me. It's been 5 years. Okay, I just gave you damn near 45 minutes of my life or longer. Share the video. Hit subscribe. Read what you're eating. Try not to eat anything that comes from California or Hawaii. Don't live in the West Coast. Look up bentonite clay. Look up how to almost never get sick. It's a video on the Correct Views channel, my channel. And look up the Correct Views, how to almost never get sick. It'll tell you what vitamin C can do. Will it stop you from getting cancer from this? Depends how you would use. Probably not. Will it postpone it? Most likely. I'm not going to rehash my whole other show, but suffice to say, I'm out here because I care and because this matters. So leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe, and above all that, this is brought to you by Change, wherever you're going to go. Go to Facebook, call Change Transportation, and let them know you heard about it from the Correct Views, and you'll get a discount there as well. If you want to donate to the show, the Correct Views at hotmail.com. I'll know where to send any. Got all the new artwork and stuff behind me. I like it. See you, friends.